Well, last week we spoke with ATX Kind. It's a group of women who came together after a series of anti-Semitic incidents in the city of Austin, a rising trend that the Anti-Defamation League has been tracking nationwide. Joining us for some insight is Texas Tribune's Robert Downen. His report is titled, "Jewish Texans See Surge in Anti-Semitism as a Precursor to Fascism." That's a headline, Robert, that's going to grab a lot of attention. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your report talked about the rise of anti-Semitism across the country. What did you find out?
Yeah, so what we found is that, the wave of anti-Semitism that extremists, experts, or extremism experts and historians have been warning about, really has not subsided at all. In fact, it's gotten worse. From 2020 to 2021, from 2020 to 2021, there was a 34% increase nationwide in anti-Semitic incidents, and in Texas, that number nearly tripled over the same period. And unfortunately, we are on pace this year to eclipse those records, both of which I think were records since, I believe, at least 40-year highs. So.
Yeah, that is disturbing information. In your article, you talk to experts who say that anti-Semitism has been normalized, so to speak. What do they say is behind that, and how does that foster even more violence?
Well, I don't think you can attribute it to one single thing, but I mean, just look at the events of the last 2 months or so. I mean, we've seen arguably some of the highest profile people in their respective spheres of society, whether Tucker Carlson, Kanye West, Donald Trump, Kyrie Irving, or Dave Chappelle, each advancing in some form or fashion a different strand of anti-Semitism. And these are the type of things that, while they're not explicitly calling for violence or anything, they are speaking on a national stage in ways that absolutely normalize this and give credence to white supremacist groups, including people like Nick Fuentes, who we're just now saying was at Mar-a-Lago last week and was meeting with the president, an avowed fascist, open white supremacist who has denied the Holocaust and has openly celebrated what he kind of sees as a looming wave of escalating violence against Jews and other marginalized communities in this country.
And of course, nowadays that stage is even broadened with social media and with the internet as well. There are groups, though, who are pushing back against this hate. What solution do they have for this?
Sure. So one of the groups I'm sure you're referring to is ATX Kind, which is an Austin-based group that was formed last year. And one of the things that they've been pushing, and what a lot of experts would agree with, is just kind of this idea of group solidarity. One of the key goals of white supremacist and extremist movements is to kind of divide groups and communities and make them feel like they're being targeted in isolation and that they are, a minority compared to this overwhelming wave of hate that's coming at them. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, it's just simply not true. The issue is that a lot of communities don't band together necessarily in the way that they should, and don't have these larger acts of solidarity where they are seeing their struggles and persecution as inextricably, intersecting with one another. So I think that's very important. But also, there are other, more basic things like, we're seeing in Texas right now a massive movement to remove anti-hate education materials from curriculum. We're seeing a number of targeted efforts to dial back the true teaching of our nation's history when it comes to race and homophobia and other types of extremist ideologies. And at the same time, we're seeing cuts in mental health spending. We're seeing a lot of different things that kind of, I think, coalesce into a broader, kind of opportune moment for a lot of these groups to really use the internet and these deregulated platforms, including places now such as Twitter, to radicalize a whole new generation of Americans to believe some of the conspiracy theories that they have, for centuries now really pushed to excuse and justify their hate.
Robert Downen with the Texas Tribune. It really is a riveting article. Thanks for your time today. And you can read Robert's article on texastribune.org.